Okay, so we'll get started here, and I'll just do a brief introduction of our next two presenters. Um, Jeremy Wilson has taught ESL in Canada and abroad for over 10 years and is currently a Link Literacy instructor and the Literacy Center of Expertise assistant. Jeremy joined TIES in 2018 and has taught Foundation up to Literacy 3-4. In his role at the Literacy Center of Expertise, Jeremy has devoted himself to improving his teaching practice to best serve literacy learners and is also focused on instructional design and curriculum development that meets the needs of literacy learners. And his co-presenter today is Donna Clarke, of course, our literacy instructor and the lead for the Literacy Center of Expertise at TIES. She's been working with literacy learners for more than 10 years and advocates for more research and training to better serve their unique needs. Her passion is fueled by the exceptional students that she has had the privilege of knowing and sharing her days with. So please feel free to proceed whenever you're ready, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. Slideshow. There we are. Okay, so thanks for having us. This is really exciting. I have thoroughly enjoyed every presentation to this point, and I agree with Marco. I'm really glad it is being recorded and that we can share it with people we know would benefit from it. So Jeremy and I are here today to focus on the hybrid delivery at TIES since its inception in April 2021. We are going to be focusing on how it relates to the link learners, including the literacy link learners. So for those of you who may not be familiar, I know we have an audience of very informed people, but literacy in the link world means people who have 8 years or less of formal education, or for reasons such as age, family situation, past trauma, may benefit from a more supportive class that is a little bit slower paced. So that is what we're going to talk about today. I'd like you to know that the lens that Jeremy and I are looking at this through is one of instructors. So we've been teaching literacy, as you said in our intro, for a number of years, and we were part of the pilot project that's still ongoing for hybrid. We currently, Jeremy and I share a Literacy Foundation Literacy 1 class, and it's in a hybrid situation. And hybrid for us means that students can join online or in the class, and they can switch between both whenever is convenient for them. And we are part of a much larger team. It's not only Jeremy and I who have piloted hybrid. We have a number of teachers doing it as well. And without the leadership and support of our managers here at TIES, we'd be nowhere. So thank you, Jana and Carrie. Oh, yes, I just did want to say also that our hybrid, we are teaching synchronous. So there's no asynchronous component to our hybrid. For the full-time classes, we have 5.5 contact hours a day, and the part-time classes in the mornings and the evenings are 3 contact hours a day. And we also have weekend classes that are offered in hybrid. So a little bit about our pilot project. As I said, it began in April 2021. It was born out of the pandemic, but we certainly haven't limited its usefulness to pandemic or endemic times. It goes far beyond that. We started with 8 full and part-time classes, and I was very surprised to learn yesterday that we're now at 48 full-time and part-time classes running hybrid, including CLB and literacy classes. As I said, it's synchronous delivery. Since the beginning of our project, we've had to go fully online, then back to hybrid and fully online based on the health restrictions that were in place in our province at the time. And going back online after we were in hybrid was a much easier transition because we had many of our students in the class and could help them with their digital skills. So when they went online, they were more prepared compared to the first days that we went online, which was very challenging. And our project is funded by IRCC. So the rationale for why we did this, and we are choosing to continue to do this, is because it really offers choice to our students. Everyone can be included in and have access to education, and that's really, really important. Uh, the hybrid situation allows for those who are immunocompromised to stay at home and access classes that way. We capture all the lost learners. When we went online, we had a lot of students who just stopped coming to school because it was not a comfortable situation for them. So when we introduced the hybrid, we got a lot of our students back who weren't comfortable being online. And for the first little while, our Fridays were still online, and this was really nice for the students who didn't ever want to be online. They were in class for 4 days, and then on Fridays, they were online, so they were maintaining and using those digital skills more independently. Um, as I said, a lot of health restrictions, interruptions, and we continue to do this because it's an innovative new process for delivery with literacy learners, and really an important one to understand, investigate, and know on a firsthand basis. Oh, already, I'm ready to turn this over to my partner in the Literacy Center of Expertise. So, Jeremy, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Donna, and thank you everyone for being here today. Um, in my section of the presentation, I'd like to go a little bit over the equipment that we've been using because it's a very important consideration when you're utilizing hybrid delivery. There are many things that need to be considered. So the first one was high-speed internet. This is vital when you are running synchronous classes. We haven't had a huge issue with this in terms of our learners. Most of them have been able to have access to high-speed internet, but we do know that in other areas of the province, maybe the more rural areas, this can be a challenge. Obviously, like with any technology, there are hiccups. There are times when the internet doesn't cooperate, but overall, I think it's gone pretty smoothly. The second thing which has been really useful for us has been the use of smart boards. While they're not absolutely vital to do a hybrid class, we have found that they're probably the best case scenario, especially when teaching lower level literacy learners. Annotation is easy. Everyone in the class can see what's happening when you're annotating, and the same goes for the students online. So it's really, really been a useful tool for us. I use it every day. The next thing is you can see in the circle there above the smartboard, we do utilize a high quality camera and microphone. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is really important so that everyone can see and hear what's going on, especially hearing. I know that I've seen other situations where people are using smaller microphones, some that are not as capable or powerful. And it does make a big difference. We've joined classes from online to kind of see what our students are experiencing, and it's really important that the microphone is high quality. We also utilize Zoom. We have experimented with different formats. I know some people use Teams, WebEx, among others, but we've utilized Zoom since the pandemic with a short detour with another interface. But Zoom has been great. It's probably the most feature-rich of any video conferencing software that I've seen in terms of teaching. So we're really grateful to have access to Zoom. And finally, one more thing that can be very important is the use of an additional laptop. I know for me, when we started doing hybrid, I had the laptop in the class with me all the time. In case something happened with the smartboard, maybe not necessarily internet, but maybe just something with the computer that the smartboard is attached to. This allows me to avoid any long interruptions in the class. When you're doing assessments one-on-one, in the LINK program, assessments are a very big part of PBLA. And when doing assessments one-on-one, I found it very useful to have a laptop. I could actually sneak out and go into another side room, maybe if I was doing an assessment with one of the learners online, who's purely online. So there's many other reasons. If you wanted to show an object and you're not really tall enough or have long arms, such as myself, you want to hold it up to the camera. It's nice to have that laptop to show those objects to the students online. And you can also move your laptop around the class. Next one. So as I mentioned, we do use a high quality camera and microphone, and we use the Logitech Meetup video conferencing camera. We currently place it at the front of the class behind the smartboard. When we started, we did have it at the back of the class, but we found that people were not really able to see what was going on on the smartboard, and they were seeing the backs of their classmates. So having it at the front has been much better for the audio as well. It's much easier to pick up the teacher as well as their classmates. It does put a lot of onus on the instructor to make sure that they are turning and facing the students that they are teaching. And I felt like after a week or two, I felt in the groove. I felt much more comfortable with facing both, making sure I was interacting with both of the students equally. So it takes a little bit getting used to, but it's been very helpful. It also includes a remote, which allows you to zoom in. So if you want to zoom into a particular student so that the students online can see who they're talking to, I often have students come up to the smartboard, and so that it's much easier for the online students to hear their classmates that are physically present. But sometimes students have mobility issues that they're not able to. So it's really nice to have that Zoom feature. So we're going to show you a few images of how our classroom setup has changed. This was during the initial stages of the pandemic, where we had some students in for a while. You can see that they're wearing masks, they're social distancing. We could only have 6 in the classroom at that time. And Donna's just going to transition to a later image. And this is where we still had restrictions in place, but we had transitioned to a hybrid environment in the classroom, where we still had to maintain social distancing, but we were able to interact quite well. And finally, this is what class looks like as of this week. So we've moved the students around. We've now can fit as many as the room allows. In my class, that could be up to 10, maybe more. I currently have about 2 students that are online most of the time, but that varies. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, and generally have between 6 to 8 learners in the class. And you can see they're in more of a horseshoe shape, which they do enjoy a little bit more. They get to sit across from each other. A lot better for pair work. And I do have them, again, come up to the front of the class and interact with their classmates online, many times throughout the day. So getting into more of the brass tacks of hybrid teaching, we wanted to show you a simple video of one of our current instructors, Heather, and she is teaching a literacy 1-2 class, a part-time class. And she's got about 5 students online and about 5 students in the classroom. In her particular classroom, she doesn't have a smart board, so she's using it with a projector, but still using the high quality microphone and camera. And we just wanted to give a short clip of just how some of this interaction might take place. You can see that Heather's using a tablet in order to be able to show some objects to the students who are online, as well as how she's interacting with the students in the class. So we'll just quickly play the video for you.
All right, do you want to try Fatima? Do you want to pick one? Okay, let me mix these up. So you pick one. Which card?
Not go.
Okay. Yeah? Yeah. Oh, okay. Here, I'll show them at home. No. I see, well, yeah, flowers. And I see, let's see. Can you see there? Bahadur, what word do you see?
Yes, teacher.
T H A N K.
Wait, teacher.
Yeah. THANKS. What word? Thanks. Oh.
Thanks.
Yeah, I see thanks.
Thanks.
That's
Thanks.
Like thank, like shukran, shukuria.
yeah.
Okay. So what kind of card do you think? Nada, Bahij.
Yes, teacher.
Birthday card, baby card, thank you
Well, thanks, Donna. So every class is different. Some classes will have more online, some will have more in the building, and every day is different. That changes day to day. So there are a lot of adaptations that the instructor has to make sure that they are interacting with both levels equally and everyone feels, involved and engaged in the class.
All right, do you want to try 5?
So now we'd like to show you a video of my class and how some of the learners online are interacting with the students in the class. I actually have one learner who's never been to the school, save for a special event. She is completely online. And this is at a Literacy Foundation 1 level, so the lowest level that we currently teach. And then I have another student who's been in the school before, but recently, because of her sickness with her child, has been at home almost every day. And then another student who vacillates between both. So just to give you a little idea of the participation that they encounter every day. As teachers, we tend to expect the same amount of participation. Like in my class, we don't have cameras off, we have cameras on, we have microphones on most of the time, because it's very, very important that they feel that sense of community, that they belong, that they're not being ignored. So we try to facilitate that as much as possible. All right, here we go.
Amanda, what are you wearing?
I am wearing shoes, I am wearing scarf, I am wearing shirt, I am wearing jeans, I am wearing socks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Donna. We'll go to the next slide. Now, we come to a very important part of the presentation. We've been using hybrid. We talked about some of the reasons why we chose to go with hybrid at our organization. And hopefully through the videos, you've seen a little bit of how it works. We know that it's not without challenges, but whenever we have challenges, there are also potential solutions. So we wanted to highlight some of those challenges because we know it's not perfect. We know, especially with the lower levels, there are some big challenges. So we wanted to talk about those, but then also look at ways we have, and we are looking to address some of these. So the first one is learners may not have access to an appropriate digital device and high-speed internet. As I mentioned earlier, the access to internet has not really been a major issue for us. I have talked to people in other programs where they have said, a lot of their students didn't have it, especially in a rural area. Luckily in Calgary, we have easy access to high-speed internet. And I know that the vast majority of our students have. I've had a few issues where students had to go to a friend's house for a few days because of a short-term internet problem, which is often technical. Not because of funding, but I know there are also subsidies available if learners in your program are not able to pay for the internet. It's more of having the appropriate digital device. Now, appropriate is a key word. We do generally find it better when students have a computer, simply because with our literacy learners, it's important for things to be as big as possible. Trying to see your classmates on a tiny screen is very difficult, much less reading when you're just learning how to read for the first time. And I know in the other presentations, I believe it was Mosaic, they spoke about having websites that are responsive, right? So they work well on a mobile device, or activities that are responsive. And this can be a big challenge. So we want our students to be able to have access to laptops because it does make things easier. And again, when you have learners on a bunch of different devices, it does place more burdens on the instructor for, when you're creating how-to videos, when you're showing them how to do something, even with phones themselves, if you have an iPhone versus an Android phone, how things look different. I recently experienced this, or not recently, several times throughout the pandemic, when it came to QR codes, showing students how to use QR codes back during when they had to show it at a restaurant, and when they had to scan a menu, for example. And a lot of Android phones that my students have, the camera does not pick it up. They had to download a separate QR code reader, where iPhones, it generally works. So small things like this that can make a big difference. So let's take a look at some of the solutions. So one thing that you can do is establish a lending library to provide learners with laptops. I know as a Link instructor at TIES, I've been extremely grateful for the program and the team we have here that has provided devices to students. It's been rare for me to not have my students have access to a laptop. Again, our lower level learners get a little bit higher priority because of their needs, but I'm very grateful to our team for continually providing those for learners. Several times throughout the pandemic, we've also received computers from partnerships with external groups and community organizations. I know at one point the Calgary Public Library had given us Chromebooks that we were able to provide students with. So this is extremely important because without that digital device, without a learner being able to access the class, it doesn't matter how great the classes are, how happy the students are if they cannot interact with each other and, you know, partake in the class. So it's extremely important. Challenge number 2. Learners may have different degrees of proficiency and comfort with digital technologies. And if you are a Link instructor, this is probably the biggest challenge at times. Our learners come with such a wide skill set, depending on so many factors. It could be age, it could be just their past experience, where they come from. So it is extremely important and something that is not easily addressed. But we'll take a look at some solutions. So these are just 2 that we've come up with at TIES, and one that existed actually prior to the pandemic, but is coming in very helpful. And that is to provide separate training to develop digital literacy skills outside of class time. One of the biggest issues that when you're an instructor and you're leading a class, you are trying to teach your class and help students, you know, turn their camera on or turn their microphone on, or if they can't hear you, they have the volume down on their computer, or when they're calling you on WhatsApp and they have accidentally pressed the Wi-Fi button on their computer. You're trying to do that while you're instructing another group of 9 adults. And so it's really, really helpful that they have some sort of external training, if possible, to develop some of those skills. And at TIES, we are lucky to have the CALL program, Computer Access for Literacy Learners, which is run by Arena. I think she's here. And that is funded by Calgary Learns. And originally, we had more of the higher level, maybe up to CLB3 and above, but I believe there are lower level learners now that are taking advantage of that program. It is one that is based on needs assessment of learners. So they do a needs assessment to find out what they need to focus on, and using different devices. It can start simple with turning on the computer, and then we'll progress up to typing, email, depending on their language level. But there's a wide variety of skills that are focused on. And the second one, which we are equally grateful for, is responsive one-on-one technological support to address specific issues. We have been very lucky at TIES to have Doobie, our IT support specialist, who has been able to provide that one-on-one support with students when they're having issues accessing the class, whether it be installing Zoom, getting on Zoom, joining a class. It could be sound issues, microphone issues. Sometimes the browser does not allow them to use the microphone or the video. And for a lower level student, this is a nightmare if they don't have family, or even if they do have family to support them. So Doobie's been great in contacting them. He's using remote support over Zoom and other things to take control of their computer with their permission, change some settings, make it so they could join the class. And also speaking another language, he's been very helpful to a certain number of our clients as well. So we've been very grateful for that. So if there's any way to have that, because again, students' issues are so individualized and specific that it's really nice to have that one-on-one support. On the third challenge, delivery tools often require skills beyond the scope of the learner's ability. Again, if you are a Link instructor, this is one that is probably near and dear to your heart. We're often asking students to do things based out of necessity. You know, students, when we went online, there are students that didn't know how to turn on a computer, but unfortunately, there's nothing else we could do. We needed to get them into class. And so it took a lot of learning on the part of the students and the instructors in order to get them kind of caught up with some of these basic skills. And even then, depending on how we're leading our classes, how we're teaching, there are things that they continually struggle with just because it's outside of the scope of maybe their current ability or where they even should be at. So there are some solutions that have come up, and based on a few recently published documents that outline some of the more appropriate digital literacy expectations. Now, we've had ESL for All for years. It's our core text in a lot of ways. We use it to decide so many aspects of our teaching. And they do have a section on digital literacy, which outlines what we can reasonably expect for a beginning, an emerging learner up until the levels where they're more highly skilled when you're getting to the CLB4. Now, it doesn't necessarily correlate to language levels, but in general, we often found that it often can. And recently, ECSD, an organization we partnered with out of Edmonton and the Literacy Center of Expertise there, has developed a digital skills progression list, which kind of outlines more specifically at each of the levels some specific skills that learners are required to undertake. When ESL for All was written, I don't know if Zoom was even invented yet or utilized. So there's some modifications that they've made based on ESL for All, and it's a great document. I recommend anyone to check it out when you're looking at designing your program or just getting a general idea of what we're getting into with our learners and what we can reasonably expect them to be able to do. Another one is there's been a few documents recently published by ASA, which outline you can see the graphic for the one there, how to create an accessible and equitable hybrid classroom. And there's also a guideline for working with low print learners and skills. And these documents are really great because they outline in general, again, some of those key limitations or challenges that the learners are facing and how we as instructors and organizations can face those. So I highly recommend accessing those. And for the last two challenges, I'm going to pass it back over to my colleague, Donna.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Yeah, so we have two more challenges. This one, some students only attend online and have never been in the physical classroom. So I just went in yesterday to take a picture of Jeremy's smartboard and his students online. Out of those 4 who happened to be online that day, there is one, as Jeremy was saying, who has never come into the classroom. So we understand that because of home responsibilities, children, health issues, travel time, things like that, that the students can't really come to class every day. And I want to reference again the lost learners that I was talking about. So we don't want to lose any learners based on our delivery method, right? But we need to acknowledge at the same time that there's a different pace of learning for those students who are learning online and those students who are in the classroom, and to get that direct contact, interaction, even the ability to just look over and double check if they're doing it right by looking at their classmates' work, things like that. So two of the solutions that we've come up with at TIES for again, we're talking about low level literacy. And I think as they move up the levels, we can take away some of the supports that exist. But what we've been doing almost since the beginning for our foundation students, almost since the beginning of the pandemic, is providing courseware packages to ensure equality of access to the learning materials. So what we do in some of our training for our new teachers is saying, you know, you can't go into your hybrid class and give your students in the classroom all a piece of paper to work on and nothing to your students online, because we don't expect at this level to be able to send a link to the students and them open it up and work on the link on their computer. We pre-make these packages. So for our full-time classes, we run for about 4 months. So we might send home packages 3 times. And by send home, I mean prepare and ask the students to pick up. Actually, if there are some issues, we do manage to get it to those who can't come into the building. But you can see an example on the right-hand side here of Heather's homework package. She's got the module package with all the PBLA material. She's got her phonics package with appropriate level activities and stories for her class. And then she has her daily routine module. Daily routine package, and that's in another colored duotang. We also get the students a small whiteboard, ABC flashcards. It's different for different levels, but for the low level, we also then give them a notebook and glue, because they still need to anchor their learning, just like the things we did in class where we were cutting and gluing, and also allowing for that processing and thinking time where while they were doing these more tactile things, they can still still do that at home, and we have found it to be incredibly valuable and important to the learning stages for our students. Now, we had to teach a whole bunch of digital skills even to do this. Like when I'm saying, can you show me your paper? And my students didn't know how to orient the paper. And I'd say, put it on your nose. So then it would be oriented to the camera. And they're literacy foundation students. So actually finding the page number can sometimes take up to 10 minutes. We're waiting and trying to help someone and showing them what the page looks like, and projecting it onto the Zoom screen, and other people are showing them. So it doesn't come without its challenges, but it has really, really helped our learners to be very active participants in the class, whether or not they're at home or in the class. Everybody gets the same materials. There's equity there. The other thing that we think is a possible solution is to consider implementing in-person attendance requirements. Of course, with exceptions. If someone breaks their leg, or if they're really have a valid, good reason that they can never come in, then we would have to honor that, because we don't want to lose learners, and we want to keep our policy of inclusion for everyone. But to get students in once or twice a week on a regular basis, so that they had access to the socialization in their class, we have to consider their mental health as well, so that they got to learn at the same pace as their classmates in the classroom, and also get some extra digital support if that was needed for them. So again, we don't want to lose any students because of any of these policies, but for their learning benefit, it would really be advantageous if we could get them in every once in a while. I keep on thinking of my student 4 years ago who just loved coming to school and wanted to come to school every day, and had her child in childcare, but her child kept on getting pink eye, and she had to stay home so many days that term to take care of her child. Now, she could have done the both simultaneously if we'd had hybrid delivery then, right? She could have been taking care of her child and meeting her needs there, but also attending class online and not missing out on what she really felt was a very, very important pursuit. She's now a child care worker, so I'm really happy about that. Okay, challenge number 5 has me all confused. It requires a different way of teaching with new demands on the instructor. So I think a lot of instructors can attest to the fact that when we went from in person to strictly online, as many schools did, we had to, develop a whole new repertoire of activities and resources to use in that environment. So that was a second set of teaching tools that we needed to master. And then we went into a hybrid situation where we're trying to negotiate 2 different interfaces with our students. As you could see on the video of Heather, she was on the computer showing and making sure she was close up, making sure the students online saw it, and then making sure the students in the classroom saw it, and just having equal access to everything there. So it is demanding. And what we suggest as some of our possible solutions, of course, are to provide continual professional development for instructors. So it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing. A lot of what we did when we first went online at TIES is we created a virtual staff room where people could just casually come in, like you would normally pass people in the hall and say, hey, have you tried this? Or what are you doing with this? So we try to maintain contact for the teachers and continually provide professional development on whatever happened to be going on what their biggest questions were, on where they needed the most help. And it's been it's been a game changer for us. I think if we worked in isolation, it would be probably hugely problematic, and we may have lost a few teachers on the way. And another thing that I think is very important is and hasn't really happened for low level literacy until the pandemic hit, was some really concrete research into the sustainability, the best practices, and the effectiveness of the outcomes. So we are generously supported by IRCC in our research, our Hello Research project, conducted by our research team, and it is hybrid education, literacy, learning optimization. So we're doing it, we're in the throes of it, but just like regular classroom teaching styles and current trends, we need to find out the efficacy of providing this type of education to our students. We also, I neglected to put it in our PowerPoint here, but I am going to bring it up a little bit. Jeremy and I at the Literacy Center of Expertise, because of this challenge, we have created a number of interactive digital activities that are good for use in a hybrid situation. They're good for use in the classroom and online as well. But because we're at teaching a level that requires a lot of support, we like to introduce many of our digital interactive activities as teacher-led. So I'm just going to show you here, and this wasn't planned, so let's see how this goes. This is the Literacy Center of Expertise website, and I have gone to resources here, down to the resource bank of things that we have created in-house to share widely. We share it on all our social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and our website. So everything's readily available there, and we try to promote it as much as we can. Our newest one is Adults Learn to Print. I invite you to take a look at that in your leisure. But I will show you some of our phonics-based stories that are available both digitally and in a PDF for the students. So the teacher would use this tool to work with the learners. Jack's cat. And I'm talking on the on the digital activity as well as right here in front of you. So it really follows the guidelines in ESL for All, and it is digitally interactive. So how we would use this in the classroom is that we would demo it with the students a number of times, and this story would be used a number of times in the classroom. And the students really had a great interest in wanting to have the link themselves and be given the opportunity to look it over and use it again on their own time. So it's not independent work as in that they're learning, but it is great review for them. And most of us have a WhatsApp group where we send links, and we're getting really good at the QR codes and things like that. So this is Jack's cat requires very few digital skills on the part of the student, especially if it's on a touch screen. That's really nice. But here it's divided into, I think, 5 parts, this story. And the first part is the development of oral language. That's why you see no text. So it's the story. And I won't play the audio for you at this stage. There. And what we're doing then is predicting, looking at the pictures, developing a literacy skill where the literacy is supported by looking at images.
Vocabulary.
And we use all real life pictures. At this point in time, we were limited to what we could get on Adobe or any of the free sharing sites. And we do have subscription to Adobe, but we have since got a photographer to help us work on our next set of 40 phonics stories. He's sitting right behind me here. But so then from the oral development, we go to the word level, and you can just press the button, man, and hear the word, and make sure that there is a command over not necessarily reading, but at this point it's understanding the meaning of the word. This digital activity gives the teacher the opportunity to do that. And then just a little self-checking, so I can click on cat. Cat. I hear it. Oh, I think it's spelled M-A-N. Nope, no, it's not. I had that cue. Cat. So all of this is before we read the story. There's a more let's check that we understand. And then here's the story now with the text. We can look, we can try and read it. We can read it together chorally, and then we can check if we're doing an okay job by clicking on this button. This is Jack. And we hear the words, so it's supported that way as well. And then there's the whole story. Jack is sad, the cat ran away. It's actually a very sad story. But the students really respond very, very well to the dilemma that this man has experienced. And he's much better than a jumping, talking frog that a lot of the resources that are available for our low-level literacy. And then
Comprehension.
we have a comprehension section. And so this, I'm going to get another one for you here. So I'm reading this. Oops, I did it wrong. Okay, so I'm listening to this. Jack has a fish. I'm going to say no.
Jack does not have a fish. What does Jack have? Click the question mark to see the correct sentence.
Jack has a cat. So that's the whole comprehension part of it. Now we've tried to make the digital skills, as I say, as the digital burden on the place of the students as minimal as possible. When we had students who started coming into the building, and this is always the anecdotal story I tell, I tell a lot of people who want me to get my students to sign into an email or things like that. I had students, the same two students, who got stuck in the elevator 3 times because they did not know the right button to press. So I think that we have to be very realistic about our expectation of the students. Now those students can press a button because they've come in, they had the support, they used their telephone and phoned me, Donna, elevator, elevator, and I'd come help them. And just like I was able to help them with the elevator when they're in class, we're able to help them digitally interact with this tool, and eventually lead to them being able to do things more independently. So there's a lot of challenges to teaching in a hybrid context. I think it is worthwhile, and it should be maintained, and it should be researched. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. You can contact Jeremy Wilson or myself, Donna Clarke, both of us at immigrant-education.ca, with any questions. Part of our mandate at the Literacy Center of Expertise is also to share information in whatever way is convenient for you. We give workshops and presentations we tailor them to your school specific needs. We create a a lot of material, and we like to collaborate as often as possible. You can find ready-made modules with digital activities on our website. You can find our short vowel stories, our newest creation, Adults Learn to Print. So we hope that you have the chance to look around there. And we are ready for questions.
Does anybody have any questions they would like to put forward first? Well, I know I'd like to start with one. Thinking about all the things that you put forward and thinking about a brand new teacher, maybe who has not really had a lot of experience teaching online or in class, one or the other, but now they're put into a classroom and they are expected to do both in the form of hybrid. How would you onboard them and how long would that take?
Okay, my mic was off. It's not a one-time thing, right? Like it's it's an ongoing process of continually supporting the teachers. But I think the onboarding has a lot of different pieces to it now. Now we our managers and our coordinators do a lot of the onboarding with the procedural stuff. We have PBLA leads who help them with that. And then we get as much observation as we can. We give them as much observation as they can. And then we try to suggest that they use some of the ready-made, particularly the CCLB modules, or if they're a lower level, our literacy modules by the Literacy Center of Expertise. And it kind of never ends. I've been teaching for 12 years and I still need ongoing support and have particularly in the last few years. So you really require a team of people to onboard. It's just not one, and there's so many aspects to teaching. And there's ongoing, they just have to be supported with ongoing PDs and training as well. So at the Literacy Center of Expertise, we have a monthly group called Let's Talk About that also helps introduces topics that are relevant to literacy teachers, and we present it as a 20-minute short presentation, and then group work and breakout room stuff where people can talk and discuss what's important to them and what their questions are, and then we return to the whole group. So I think it's community building is also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you referenced at some point in the presentation, I think it was an online resource that outlined the digital expectations for each level of your learners. Can you just give us a little bit more, maybe an example of what those expectations look like?
Yeah, for sure. Again, the document is provided by ECSD, Edmonton Catholic School District out of Edmonton. And for example, we're often asking our learners at all the levels to be able to turn on the computer, make sure it's plugged in, maybe turn a screen on, be able to navigate a desktop, find Zoom, click on that, enter it, join a class, or alternatively, they might have to open an email to find the link for the class there. So there's a whole group of skills that they may or may not possess. So when we're looking at the lowest levels, it can be as simple as vocabulary for a computer. What is a mouse? What is a trackpad? When you start teaching the learners, you start to realize maybe 3 or 4 have mouses and 3 or 4 have trackpads. They do the same things, but they look different. And when you try to show learners how to click on a trackpad, it's much different than learners clicking on a mouse. So that core vocabulary is really the first step. They often know computer, a phone. So we have to teach them all that sort of vocabulary. And then from there, things like join, log in, providing them with, very simple, basic typing on the computer. And then as we progress up the levels, they can do more and more. But especially at the lower levels, we have to start with the most basic things. And so this was outlined in ESL for All to some degree before under their digital literacy heading, starting from that basic level, but it was never really aligned to, it was in beginning, emerging, or emerging, I can't remember the three words they use, but basically a progression, right? A continuum. And what they've done at ECSD is align it to a specific level, foundation 1. And based on their experience and after looking at it, I find my own experience correlates quite a bit with that as well. So we'll start there and then we move up. But again, one of the tricky things is, I've heard this been said of language learning in general, and what students face, newcomers face when they come to Canada, is often the most important things are the hardest. You know, dealing with taxes, dealing with medical information, legal information. And so oftentimes the things that we have to get our students to do are quite difficult for their levels. So meet them wherever they can and then build the skills from there.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask? Okay, thank you guys. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Whitney. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, so we're going to take just a 10-minute break before our final presentation of the day. Colin DeGraff is going to be joining us to talk about leadership and storytelling and e-learning. So take a break, turn off your cameras for a while if you'd like, and feel free to come back at 2 o'clock.